Welcome to the Dead Bedroom Revival Podcast. My name is Curry, your host, and I'm very, very excited to be making this episode. The reason why is because I've been asked about seduction and seduction within a relationship. There's a misconception when it comes to this, because usually I think if you think of it as a gauge, most people think guys spend their life on 80% horniness, and then therefore it only takes a little bit to tip them over. And then women tend to be on like 10% horniness, so then they have to go, you have to work towards, the 100% of, okay, let's get stuff done. And to a certain extent, there is some truth to it. It's just dependent on how we were socialized as children and how we grew up. And usually, when it comes to girls, as they're introduced to sex or the concept of sex pretty early within their life. So if you think of my daughter, she's now 10, but when she was 3 years old, when she wore a dress, instantly, if she sat in an awkward way, then I'll be like, oh, you need to close your legs, you need to cover yourself, which is something that boys would not get. And this is important because all of a sudden there's this sense of you need to protect yourself. You need to be aware of this thing. You need to be staying away from this thing. So it begins the shape of how women think about sex. And then when it comes to puberty, when they start getting breasts and start getting sort of things that indicate that they're ready to have children, all of a sudden people start behaving different, especially men start behaving different around them, because it is just a natural instinct to start seeing them as potential people to bear children. Obviously, if you're a sensible human being and you know that that's a child, so you wouldn't take it further. I know some people do, but that's another different story. So people start behaving different around them, and then all of a sudden they're unaware of what's changed, but then over a period of time they start seeing more boys approaching them, and they start seeing people coming with more interest towards them. And then all of a sudden they have periods, and those periods we tell them about childbearing. And then depending on what the advice is, usually it's about you need to protect yourself because you'll get pregnant, so you don't need to have sex, you shouldn't have sex. And this becomes a really terrible thing to have sex when you're a girl. And then if you look at the counterparts, the guys, they are being encouraged to have as much sex as possible. So it begins to shape our minds. And this concept is, especially when they go into school, the sex talk, girls are separated from the guys. And when they have that talk, it's all centered around girls really preserving themselves, and really that sex is bad. And anything else that comes with it as well is if she sees a couple of guys, then she's called a slut. So she has to preserve herself in that sense as well. So she can't really go out and experiment and see and speak to a couple of guys or sleep with a few guys, because she's going to have a label. So there is a lot of difference when it comes to the upbringing and the view of sex. Hence the reason why when now you're in a relationship, if you call that sort of low sense of libido, like, for lack of a better term, is sort of 10%. And then we guys, because we've never had these sort of restrictions, our minds then are sort of got a cognitive dissonance. What that is that your mind makes a decision and then it follows information to support it. So it's kind of like when you wanted to buy a car or you wanted to buy something, the day you decided the type of car you wanted to buy, all of a sudden you started seeing it everywhere because you've decided you want to buy this thing. So you start getting supporting information to say it's a good idea. So when you first had sex, or when you had first sexual experience, or when you found that it was amazing, you started finding reasons to to reaffirm that that is a good thing. So, when you see boobs and you see all these visual cues for you to for sex, they just ramp up as you grow up. So this is why there's that massive difference. So when it comes to a relationship, then if you, for example, just call the woman's interest 0, if her interest is a baseline is 0, when you meet and there is sparks flying and she's excited, there's a few things that are happening within that period of time. So that time she's sort of fallen in love with you, and there's excitement of being with somebody and getting to know somebody, and there's that sort of society thing where they say men love sex. So she feels like, okay, I need to give him a lot of sex so she sees that I'm okay. So you go into this process where you're doing all these things and you're having fun, experimenting, and maybe depending on who you are, maybe you don't talk about it that much, but you're experimenting that much. And then when things get more permanent and a bit more solid within the relationship, she naturally has to, there's the stimulus for her to continue that starts fading away because of you guys getting more permanent. And when that stimulus is gone, she'll revert back to 0, where is there's lack of libido, lack of interest, sexual interest, lack of all those things start coming. And then this is why we end up in this sort of dead bedroom scenario. So when it comes to seduction, which is why we made this episode, it becomes very important to introduce things that stimulate that. And when you think of seduction, most guys think it's grabbing the boob or making a silly joke, or, and again, I think the last episode I talked about how we make sort of weak attempts to seduction, and then we class that as a fail, whereas we just did a weak attempt. So then that weak attempt it just sort of nullifies any sort of any strength to what you're trying to show her. So again, it comes back down to that thing that you need to be able to create that stimulus. Now, in order to learn about the stimulus, you know what I'm going to say, you need to go to deadbedroomrevival.com, where we will give you more training. So you'll be able to get more training and how to actually create that stimulus. And part of that stimulus is within our guide. So we've got a guide where it talks about 4 ways to seduce her, and you'll be able to go through the process of really creating that stimulus within your relationship. And again, it actually shows you the certain things that you need to be doing, so your efforts don't look pathetic and weak, but they actually look quite strong and actually sort of trigger her to actually feeling those feelings of seduction and feeling those feelings of connection. So I really, really hope that you guys can really start seeing that there's certain things that we always blame the woman and say it's her fault, but there's certainly a lot of parts that we can do, especially this situation when you start looking from this perspective that by default she doesn't want to be having a relationship, or she's not been set up to have a relationship where there's frequency in sex, where there's frequency in that sort of way of connection. So you have to do certain things to actually create that to happen. So I'm really, really excited to have made this episode. I was sort of trying to get this point across. So if you've got any questions, go to our Facebook group where we actually put to do more video trainings, and this way you'll be able to get some of this information, so we can actually show you some drawings. And when some people are visual learners, so and I'm very good at teaching visually, so when I'm speaking on the podcast sometimes I find it very difficult because I really want to show people like exactly how to work, or what I'm saying with drawing, so that you can actually get a mental image of what I'm trying to say. So I'm really excited to have made this episode, and I would like to see you guys in the Dead Bedroom Revival Facebook group, where we are all connecting and we're all growing together. So thank you very much. I'll be seeing you guys soon. Take care.